All right, everyone, thank you for taking the time today. My name is Bryan Tobin. I'm here with Michael Yeon, who's our VP of Sales and Marketing. We are going to talk about growing subscriptions and subscribers today. So we'll start with like a little bit of a backdrop on who Admiral is and like why we're talking about this topic and why it's important to us. Then we're going to jump directly into those 5 steps. We are short on time because it is 1.5 hour long. So we're going to keep things moving pretty quickly here. So with that, Mike, I'll pass it off to you if you want to give a quick overview of our platform.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, for all the attendees, thank you for joining us this afternoon and spending some time with Admiral. This is actually our first webinar that's essentially a solo webinar and we plan to produce one of these a month. So if there's anything from a topic standpoint that you would like us to talk about, if you are a current customer and there are questions that you have that you would like us to address as a team or in a more formal manner, we'd be more than happy to oblige. So these things are going to happen once a month. The topics are going to vary because obviously our footprint is pretty wide in terms of the things that we work on behalf of publishers. So hopefully you'll get some good information today, and this will be worth your time. And like Bryan said, we've got some really good information and that we'd like to share. So please stay with us till the end and ask any questions or save any questions you might have. So before we get into it, I do want to talk a little bit about Admiral as a company for those who are not familiar with us. We are a VRM platform, visitor relationship management. That's what VRM is short for. And when we came into the market about 6 years ago, we were very singular in our focus, and we wanted to essentially provide publishers with the gold standard solution in solving the issue of ad blocking. Ad blocking was a major issue, still is a major issue in the industry, being that essentially 1 out of 3 internet users in the US alone are employing some sort of ad blocker. That's directly affecting your revenue. So when we came to market with our solution, the methodology that we employed was this idea of access control, right? So it was the idea of segmenting that portion of your traffic and then engaging them and asking them to do, XYZ, which is at that time and specific to ad block users, it was to whitelist or allow list your site. Since then, we were able to expand on that using that very same methodology to really deliver solutions across a litany of challenges that publishers are facing today. So fast forward to 2021, Admiral as a platform, we work on delivering comprehensive solutions for things like ad block revenue recovery, both engagement-based recovery and reinsertion-based recovery. We also provide a consent and privacy management solution in the form of a GDPR CMP and a CCPA compliance module. Digital subscriptions is a big part of our business since then, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Everything from paywalls to reg walls, single site, multi-site network subscriptions, donations and such. Registration and ID capture is something that is also a byproduct of our subscription platform. Registration is kind of that half step toward a full-on subscription, and it's become that much more important because the industry is scrambling to figure out, like, am I going all in with a cohort-based solution like Flock, in the absence of third-party cookies or the eventual absence, or am I going with the UID feature, or am I using both? So registration, ID capture is something that's become a lot more critical in the tool set a publisher might bring to market. And then email acquisition, again, that's almost like the half step with the half step. This is emails are the perfect personal identifier, and people who opt in to give you their email, it's something that's critical across multiple parts of a publisher's business model. And then social growth is something that we can affect as well through our platform and our modules. If social growth is something that's important for you, whether it's to drive traffic or to simply build your brand or to get information out there, it's something that we can help with. So all those things in combination, they basically are there with the intent to maximize the revenue that you're deriving from that single user. So if you are using all these things in concert, you will be maximizing your average revenue per visitor, and that's the whole intent of the Admiral VRM platform. So next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So today, this is what you guys are dealing with, right? Ad blocking, privacy blocking, the dissolution of third-party cookie targeting in your ad ecosystem, privacy and consent-driven regulations like GDPR, CCPA. There's other state level regulations that are coming down the pike. Canada's coming out with their own regulations, and so are many other parts of the world. And it's something that is, again, top of mind and prevalent, something you have to deal with. But at the end of the day, when you look at all these various factors, they're what we call speed bumps to monetization. And the solution to all these things across the board, the undercurrent solution is building that first-party consent-based visitor relationship. And one of the easiest, most profitable ways to do that is to leverage subscriptions. And who believes in VRM and who uses and leverages VRM? I think the last time we counted, we have about 18,000 plus subs and publishers worldwide that leverage Admiral and its products. Large networks like NBC Universal to CBS Viacom, Hearst, Condé Nast with Advanced Local, Valnet, PGA Tour, lots of big brands out there. But at the end of the day, what I do want to remind you, this is a problem for everybody, whether you're a tier 1 publisher or a smaller publisher. This is a problem, and these are issues that everybody is facing. But the good news is, as long as you are attempting to find value or monetize your traffic, Admiral has something for you. So I'm going to kick this off with a little bit of research before I hand things off to Bryan. And people often ask, why did you expand beyond providing that awesome ad block revenue recovery solution? Is because it's all tied together, right? Ad blockers are a segment of traffic that, or their consumer segment that, have decided, like, I want to manage my digital content consumption online, right? And I want more control over that. We asked the survey question to thousands of ad block users, which of the following would you be willing to do for an ad-free experience on the site? So, they're obviously gaining that ad-free experience through using their ad blocker, but they're also willing to negotiate with a publisher because they understand that a value exchange has to be made, right? They understand that there is a, this content's not free, right? And as long as you remind them of that, they're willing to negotiate with a publisher, right? So it could be sign up for an email newsletter, it could be downloading one of your apps, following you on social media, and then number 4, or a quarter of these users have indicated they would pay for a monthly subscription. And the vast majority of these users do pay for digital content. So we asked the question, like, do you currently pay for regular purchases for the following online? And everything from an online subscription to a website, a streaming video service, streaming music service, for an ad-free experience on a site that offers a free ad-supported version. So there are people that we come across. There's vast segments of users that we come across that are, they would like to support a site, but they would like to just open up their wallet and pay the publisher directly. And then this statistic is 68% would pay for an ad-free subscription. Yeah. And the reason why we're focusing on ad block users is because more often than not, when we work with publishers, we like to use their ad block traffic as sort of a guinea pig or a test bed, because this is a portion of your traffic you're simply not monetizing. So it's a good segment of users that you can certainly run a lot of these tests with, including subscriptions. And then finally, this question is that we asked recently in a survey that is currently live on our site at the moment, which is, have you compensated a website via donation in the past year? 40% had said yes. So just imagine if 40% of your users are paying you for your content, how much money would you make? So I'm going to pass things off to Bryan, and he'll go right into our subscription model and how that could benefit you guys.
Yeah, I think those stats are interesting because a lot of the conversations that I have with publishers, one of the first, I guess, concerns about talking about subscriptions is like, will people pay for content online? And it feels like there's this stigma that they won't, and that's just not the case. Again, a lot of our survey data is focused on ad block users because that's like where we came from. Our bread and butter product is an ad block recovery tool, but essentially by building that, we got a lot of feedback from users on how they want to consume content online. That kind of drove us to doing subscriptions. So the reason I'm showing this chart, this is subscription growth over like an anonymous cohort of Admiral customers since January 20. So we're seeing that this number is going up, and it's going up fairly significantly, which is exciting as customers are growing more subscription revenue through our tool. And we're seeing this become a significant part of a kind of a publisher playbook. Instead of just being reliant on ad revenue, having that subscription offering just available on the site and giving users the option for how they want to consume your content, whether ad supported or if it is a subscription, maybe it's a non-ad supported model they get by paying for a subscription. That's fairly interesting. And then that revenue being a little bit more predictable than ad revenue. And when I say a little bit, I'm probably understating that. The predictability of subscription revenue for you all as business owners is fairly exciting because you're much more in control than relying on ad revenue to fund your site. So to get right into it, if you came here for the 5 steps, take a screenshot. This is what we're going to cover. We're going to go into all of these in a little bit more detail, but a lot of what we're going to talk about really covers like 2 different things. So one, it's you all likely have a bunch of data on the users of your site somewhere. That might be in a newsletter platform that you're using today. You might have some sort of CRM that you're storing customer data in. Likely you're working with vendors who are also keeping track of what users are doing on your site using some combination of like first and third party cookies. And the goal of like using that information is just to try to find out what's the right lever to pull for a certain user to try to get them to convert. So we'll say that's like category 1 is using your site and the information that you know about folks to improve conversions. And then I say category 2 is about testing and iteration, and that's really covering 3, 4, and 5. So once folks do start converting, you start getting people who are willing to pay for access to your site or want to, contribute, whether that's through a donation or something else, how do you grow that? And we're going to go talk about like how you survey your customers in an effective way, then how you take that feedback and iterate your own subscription offering. And then even looking at things you're doing today on your site to find out like what could we potentially put behind like a gate or maybe like limit access to that would drive more conversions. And all of those 5 points are built around this concept called the audience development cycle, which is how do we get someone to initially find out about our content and then convert? So 3 categories here are awareness. This is, just talking to your users, and that can be driving someone to your site from like social media. If you have a big social following, is great. This is gating certain content so that your users know that there is a subscription offer that is available on the site. A lot of what publishers do when they kind of dip their toe into subscriptions is similar to like social follow buttons on a site. They'll just put, a small amount of real estate on their website, which is like a login or sign up button, and they don't promote it. So the problem is that maybe even a user that wanted to buy a sub wouldn't know it's there because like the browsing habit of folks online, they might not see that part of your site because it's almost like a banner blindness that happens to those very, very low touch CTAs that we'll call them. Acquisition. So once people come to our site, how do we then create a first party relationship with them? How do we take them from anonymous user, a visitor, and get to know them? This is things like email capture. Mike talked a lot about registration, which is awesome. It's getting someone to just create an account on your site. It doesn't cost them anything. And then the top tier of that is getting someone to pay for you and convert to a subscription. Then after acquisition is activation. So activation means that people are actually using it. So they're coming to your site frequently. They're maybe updating preferences. A cool thing to use for activation is if you have like a preference center where folks can say, I like this content versus this, or newsletters do this really well, where it's like, I want to subscribe to this list versus this list. And you find out like why people are coming to your site. You can then drive more repeat traffic. You can also do this with exclusive access. We have a number of publishers who, before they release an article to the entirety of the web, they release it to their subscribers only. It feels like they're at the cutting edge of the news that comes out for the site. It's pretty exciting. And then on social media, making your subscription and your content that your paid subscribers are consuming shareable is awesome because it gets your own subscribers to use their network, potentially drive subscriptions for you. And we see how each of those bullet points align with each of these sections. So awareness, again, a lot about using your site to understand what people are consuming, who they are to get a conversion. Acquisition is almost entirely about testing. We talk with a lot of publishers, and one of the common questions that comes up is, how do I price my subscription? And the reality, the answer to that question varies based on content and who your audience is and your appetite for what you want to charge for. But testing is the best way to get a definitive answer. And then once we start getting conversions, how do we make this a sustainable program? I love the word membership over subscriptions. I think talking subscriptions very easy to understand that concept because you're subscribing, but a membership is something people like voluntarily want to contribute to. So making sure that people are getting out of their payment to you, because we're competing with a lot of subscriptions. We're seeing more and more players come out in the space to be like a direct consumer subscription offering. So you got to make sure that when your loyal users are comparing you to what else they could buy, that they're seeing you as the most valuable piece of content. So we're going to dive right into it. So the first thing, and probably the most important starting point when you're doing subscriptions, like it's an audit of what you're doing today and what you're doing with your customer data today. I would say most folks at this point probably have tried out an email newsletter. Some of them are dormant. Some of them have like a MailChimp account that they just don't really use. And if you fall in that category of newsletter owner, I'd encourage you to revisit your newsletter strategy. It's an excellent way to drive engagement on your site. Things like privacy and consent. So this is more like data that's available on your page. There are certain regulations in certain countries or certain states based on what you can do with the user's data with or without their permission. Having some sort of state awareness about what a user has consented to or not will let you have a better conversation with that user. Then social networks are phenomenal as far as like leveraging customer data. Not a lot of publishers think about their social channels as an avenue of customer data, but it is. If a lot of publishers actually build a strong following on things like Twitter or Facebook, or we have a number of publishers with a big Pinterest following as well. Any social channel that folks are consuming your content with, you want to drive that traffic to your site. You want to know what channel they came from, and then you want to hopefully convert those folks from like a social follower into a actual paid subscriber. And the entire goal of all of this is fairly simple. It's based on what you know. You want to show that right offer to the right user at the right time. And this could even be a comparison of, do I want to ask someone to create an account for free or to pay me a subscription? And things like that can be done with content consumption. So measuring how much folks are using on your site. This is an example of a customer that's using Admiral for subscriptions today. They do a pretty neat kind of offer. They have a pretty neat offer program, let's call it that, where they start by asking every user to pay for their MSRP pricing for a digital subscription. And then if folks do not purchase, so they dismiss the message, they move on with their browsing. If folks continue to consume content at a certain rate, meaning they consume articles in a certain time frame, they actually show discounted offers to try to get that user to convert, because they know that someone is a high consuming user. Now, someone who's not on their site as frequent shouldn't see this message, right? Because they're not consuming as often. So they're going to get that MSRP pricing more often than the discounted rate. And their strategy here is that they know someone's consuming a lot. They're willing to eat 3 months at a discounted pricing, which is what this does, just to get that person to come in the door. Now, on a content side, one thing I encourage you to look at today is review how you're categorizing your content. I think a lot of publishers, from what I've seen, have if anything, like a very basic level of content categorization of paid versus unpaid. But there's many more tiers to think about. One thing we're actually seeing more publishers doing is that a subscription is not like a binary thing. It's not I am subscribed or not. It's almost like a tiered model where there's certain subscription tiers that come with additional benefits. And your goal is to take someone from the lowest value tier that they're currently sitting in and push them down. So if anyone's familiar with the marketing funnel, the infographic on the right translates that funnel to audience development and subscription monetization for publishers. So the goal is like there should always be a tier of content that we'll call awareness content that folks can consume in a certain way that would not ask them to purchase. That's your top of the funnel. You want people to know your site and get your name out there. You then have content that's based around someone's specific experience on the site. Again, if they're a high frequency visitor, maybe we ask them to purchase a subscription, subscribe to our email newsletter. Preference comes down to showing the user the content that's relevant to them. 2 ways to get this. One's like an explicit opt-in. So ask someone, what articles are you interested in? Another great way to use preference is again, email newsletters and saying, we send 5 emails based on these content types. What would you like? So then someone tells you what kind of content they want to consume. We then want to push folks down to loyalty. That's coming to your site on a repeat basis. This is likely someone who has subscribed. Then advocacy is, that's where we want to end up with every subscriber. These are folks that are on your highest tier plan that they can be on. They're talking to you. There's someone that responds to your surveys, and they're an advocate for your site. They're going to tell folks to go out. They're going to talk to their friends and try to get them to convert. Again, the way that we get here is by not treating our content the same. So at a very basic level, you need to review the content that to date has been the most successful with your audience. Try to identify the trends, and then at some point put a categorization system in place so that in the future, you can say content of this type might be restricted access to only subscribers. And the way you can set that up is fairly simple. We have a lot of publishers that do it based on category IDs. You can put content in a certain directory. That's what that exclusive example shows at the top. If you have specific pages that are driving a bunch of traffic, it's a great way to segment. So if you have an article that's picked up by a referral site, for example, it's driving a ton of traffic, you should treat interactions on that page differently, because you might be able to get a ton of email or paid subscribers just by asking folks when that page gets picked up by an affiliate site. Then this is a small creative what this engagement could look like on your site. This would be branded to look like just like every publisher that's on here looks like your own site. Going into 3, so you want to test this stuff. It's probably the coolest part of when we talk about this ad block cohort of users that we've had the opportunity to work with. They're very easy to test with because we can target them. Publishers aren't getting value from these users to begin with, and asking them to subscribe is a great way to get them to give you value. If they don't want to consume ads, if they want to pay you directly, that's great. And direct revenue is also better for you all too. Now, it's not just tied to ad blockers though. Another good example here is if you have low performing browsers, Safari with how they handle privacy typically performs lower for publishers. You might want to start by having your subscription offer only display Safari traffic, so you're not impacting your overall Chrome traffic, which is likely the lion's share of your ad revenue. And again, with the ad blockers, it's very simple to put this kind of value exchange in front of them. So you have a very transparent message. We're asking them to make a choice. You can either support us by allowing ads on a site. And when someone does that, you should think about that as a tier of user, like a user that intentionally chooses to allow ads. That's way different than an anonymous browser. And there's things that you can do to that user to make them rewarded for that decision they made to allow ads on the site. Or if they really do not want to allow ads, allow them to pay you directly. A cool thing to do here too, instead of asking for like a direct payment, if you don't know a price point, ask for a donation, because donations, folks can donate whatever they like to you, essentially pay what they feel is fair. And when you run that for a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever time period you want, you're going to collect data and see what folks find to be a fair price point for you. And you can use that to refine your actual subscription price point. So cool. So we've had a lot of fun. So we've went through 3 things to kind of like get us to get subscriptions. So folks are buying on your site. Now that you have subscribers, what's the next move? I think the most important thing, we went over some survey data to begin our call, because we survey a ton. We've gained a lot of great feedback from users of the internet just by asking them their thoughts. I highly encourage surveying your early subscribers and talking to them, emailing them directly, trying to get on the phone with them, do a Zoom like we're doing right now, and find out why they converted. There's a few reasons to do this. One, they're going to tell you, someone who's an early adopter of anything had some sort of reason why they wanted to be on the initial group that accepted a certain offer. Maybe they didn't know they were part of that group to begin with, but something made them say yes. Finding out what that was will help you get more folks to say yes. And then leveraging them like a resource, make them feel like they're part of the subscription development program, because that will get them to be like an advocate for you. Early on, I think a lot of fear that publishers have with subscriptions is that your users are going to be upset they have to pay for content, they're locked out of the site, they're going to go elsewhere. When you have a loyal user who converted early and they take your side, because these conversations might happen in like a chat room, a forum on your site, maybe like a Facebook page, those users supporting you and saying, no, like this is how these publishers make revenue is amazing. And it feels good because essentially it's someone else protecting you, because you're not doing anything wrong by trying to monetize your content. You're actually doing the right thing by giving users different ways to consume and really putting the choice in their hands on consume with ads or pay directly. The last thing here is build around the idea of community. Again, if you think this is just a subscription and that's the word that you're going to wrap yourself around and then you're done with it, I encourage you to do some research into membership organizations, community organizations, and actually building this idea that people are paying as part of an exclusive group. And of course, there's benefits that are associated with that. They should have exclusive content. They should get some sort of premium access to a site. Some other things that we've seen from publishers, private Discord channels. So even just getting them to have a chat room where they're talking to other folks who made this purchase decision is fantastic. Member exclusive store, I think merchandising for every publisher is going to go up over the next 5 years. So giving folks like discounts on any kind of merchandising that you have. We even have publishers who, when someone purchases a certain plan, they just send them a physical product. It's great. It's a way to make your site and your publication not just something they're consuming online, but it almost gets it out of the internet and becomes a bigger part of someone's life. And then lastly, like, leverage their networks. So your own subscribers, they have folks that they likely would want to share this content with. Again, a lot about reading the news or any content is talking to your peers about it and sharing your thoughts and opinions, making your content, like incentivizing your users to share it across their networks to drive more traffic to your site, and then treating users who are shared your content differently than someone who just found it organically. Incredibly important, meaning that someone who was shared a link to your site might have more premium access to the page than someone who found it anonymously. Cool. We're short on time, so we're going to power through these last few slides. This is just reiterating again what we're trying to do here. Get people to find out who you are and what you're talking about, get to know them, acquire their information, and then get them to be a repeat user, a heavy user, an advocate of your site. And those 5 steps, fairly simple to implement, will help get you on that path to start launching subscription revenue. Things that you can do today. So these are things that, we clearly, we're Admiral, we'd love to work with you all directly, right? But if you have other tools in place or something that you just want to start without, moving forward with us, review your newsletter list, because you have to review that VRM toolkit. And if you're not doing anything with your newsletter, reconsider that. A monthly newsletter send can do a ton to just drive traffic to your site. And even seeing people who are clicking and engaging your email are indicators of folks that will purchase. You have to find out where your customer data lives, talk to your vendors, anyone that's running like a third-party service on your site, find out what kind of information they're storing, what do their cookies mean, because we can use all of that for targeting, or you can use that to target your users. If you're not categorizing your content, you should start doing that today. You don't need to make any large-scale changes, but if your content's in a place where what is premium, middle tier, and then we'll say like free for all content, when you launch this program, you're gonna be in a lot easier place to make that make those structural changes without having to go back and tag every single article. And then lastly, talk to your users. The digital publishing space has been mostly an eyeballs industry in getting people to the site. And we think, we've really put this stake in the ground that first party relationships are how this industry is going to evolve. Talking to your users, find out why they like your site, why they come back, why they talk to their friends about it, is a way it's going to, 1, make your site better, and 2, it's going to help you refine your subscription program. Cool. So we're going to close up. If anyone has questions, if you want to throw them in the chat, we can address them as well. I added 3 that were, kind of softballs based on conversations that we have with customers. The one that comes up more often than not is like, how do I know if my content is a good fit for a subscription offering? And the reality is you don't until you test it. And that's why testing is, we intentionally make testing very easy in our platform. And I'll mention one more time that ad block cohort that is making no revenue for you, putting up a message to them. Again, they can dismiss it whenever they want. You can target when it shows, but just asking users what they would like to do to consume your content, you'll be surprised at the results that you'll get. Then if I'm not using Admiral, how can I execute recommendations here? Again, we would love to work with you. If anything here is exciting, let's talk after this call. We'll get something on the calendar. But if you're not using us, you'll want to find a tool that you can use to talk to your site visitors. So some sort of engagement layer. You'll want a newsletter platform. I assume a lot of folks have it. If it's dormant, again, kick the tires on it, make sure that you're using it strategically. And the last thing is you'll need some place to store customer data. That could be a CRM, it could be a Google Sheet, anywhere that's just like a single place that your whole team knows customer data lives. And I see a question, I'll address that in a moment. Last thing here is if I had to implement one of these steps, which should I choose? Survey. I think that's the most important thing, because a lot of the other action items are really based around what your users want. So if you're not sure where to start, I highly encourage you to talk to your users. All right, Jeff, I see your question. For mid-tier publishers, what would be the average weekly subscription rate? I would say the first thing you want to focus on is getting 1 subscriber. And then we'll see how things run for a week, because we have certain customers. Here, I'm going to go way back to the beginning of this presentation. So we had a publisher who went live with subscriptions in March of this year. And they actually sent out an email campaign to their newsletter subscribers, letting them know that they had a subscription available. And they had $100,000 in subscriptions they did that month. And that's why we have this peak here in March. So it's hard to give an average of subscribers that would convert without any, like kind of like light marketing, but I can say I've seen it anywhere from, a handful, 5 to 10 in the first week, to up to a few hundred that have been converted. And that is a mid-tier publisher. That's not even an enterprise publisher.
Yeah, and Jeff, just to reiterate, if you were to leverage Admiral to power your subscription program for a mid-tier publisher, we make it financially viable because there is no out-of-pocket to leverage Admiral. So it's like, you would only pay us, or the publisher would only pay us if subscriptions are sold.
Yep.
So we make it super, there's no onboarding fee, there's no monthly like maintenance fee, upkeep fee, or any of that that you might come across with some of the other third-party subscription tools.
I'd say that's probably one of the cooler parts, is that, again, the risk here is fairly minimal. I think there's a lot of fear, at least from what I've talked to folks about, but I encourage experimentation. And if we can help, I think we've done these, we've had kind of calls like this before with a few customers, and I found that they become more interesting when after we actually look at customers' own data and their own site, and look at this in the context of how we could implement this on their property. And if that's something that you want to do a deeper dive on, just shoot me an email after this webinar, just with the title of like September webinar or something that I know it came from here, and we'll get something on the calendar. And that's all we had. So again, guys, I appreciate everyone attending. This was our first webinar, so we talked about surveys a lot. So I'll be reaching out to all of you who attended personally, and I'd love to just hear what you liked, what you didn't, be brutally honest, because we want to refine this program over time. And if you have any questions that we did not answer, again, my email is brian@getadmiral.com and Michael's is michael@getadmiral.com, and we'd both be happy to help.